In this week's Drive, we look at what should be the new World Cup of motorsport. Watch as history looks set to be swept aside. Wrap up a close combat championship. And see what a past master has to say about a big desert bruiser. All this and more in this week's Drive. We start this week with developments at the top of the motorsport world. Just 6 months after the launch of A1 Grand Prix Series in Dubai, series founder and CEO, His Highness Sheikh Maktoum Hasha Maktoum Al Maktoum, announced the signing of the first 6 national seat holders and confirmed the final specification of the cars. The United Kingdom, South Africa, China, Portugal, Pakistan and the Lebanon are the first countries to have secured their seats for the unique Winter One-Make Championship commencing in autumn 2005. A prototype car was extensively tested by one-time Jordan Formula One driver Ralph Furman.
Basically, we are the World Cup of motorsport, and nations backing the car, sponsors backing the country, teams pushing the driver, drivers pushing the cars. It makes sense. It's simple.
The series will take place after the Formula One racing season and will be run at various racetracks around the world. The series is for cars that will be regulated by A1 Grand Prix centrally, so their performance is as identical as possible. Lola cars are making all 30 of the cars for the series, and the engines will be 3.4-litre V8 Zytec units. Formula One cars currently use 3-litre engines producing over 900 brake horsepower in some cases, but it's planned for this to be reduced to 2.4 litres by 2008 at the latest. The A1 Grand Prix unit will produce substantially less power, but General Manager and test driver Stephen Watson reported the test car was faster than a Formula 3000 car around Jerez. Formula 3000 is the international series that many drivers use as a stepping stone to a Formula One drive. Electronic aids will be banned from A1 Grand Prix cars, so the emphasis is on driving ability. Control tyres for the new series will be produced by American company Cooper after they bought the Avon tyre facility in the UK. To add excitement, each car will have a power boost button to raise power from the engine and allow overtaking. However, the boost button can only be used a certain number of times during each race. The chairman of the UK team is John Surtees, MBE, the only man to have won circuit racing world championships on 2 and 4 wheels.
We're talking about high-performance cars with, all of the technology relative to aerodynamics and everything incorporated in it, but with none of the driver aids. And this, of course, is a major factor in that if we're going to develop drivers and personnel, it is perhaps better not to have all these aids available, both for the quality of the racing, but also for the question of the end quality relative to the people you produce. You will produce people who will more understand driving by the seat of their pants and getting the tips of their fingers, all the feel of it. This is something which is very important. It's the way I grew up, but with cars which are considerably safer than the cars I drove.
Each team will be run by a franchisee, and that team will represent a country. It'll be backed by a national company as a sponsor. It's the team that scores points, and a driver who does not perform well can be replaced. To underline the national element, drivers must have family roots in the country they drive for, while advertising and sponsorship on the cars is required to come only from businesses based in or identified with that country. Sheikh Al Maktoum of the ruling royal family of Dubai is developing the series with backing from South Africans Brian Manel and Antonio Teixeira.
Instead of having people going to the cinema on a Sunday, I want them to be at my race. We've made the tickets affordable. We've made so that a family of 5 can go and watch the race and not have to break the bank to do so. We made it so they have a full day of full entertainment and they get their money's worth. We make sure that the sponsors are happy with the coverage. We make sure that the countries are proud to be in our series. We make sure that the fan, our absolute end customer, is absolutely satisfied and pleased. If the franchise holders are not happy, we have a problem. If the sponsors are not happy, we have a problem. If the teams are not happy, we have a problem. If the drivers are not happy, we have a problem. If the fans are not happy, we have a big problem. So it's first and foremost about our end customer.
The dates of races have not yet been announced, but it's expected that they will take place in Australia, Portugal, Bahrain, China, Dubai, Japan, Indonesia, Malaysia, South Africa and the USA. If the new series might be seen as a threat to the heady world of Formula One, another comes in the form of suggestions that Britain, home to most of the motorsport industry, might not host a Grand Prix from next year. Silverstone, the track that hosted the very first Formula One race in 1950, is under threat as a venue thanks to restricted public access.
We have made a very full offer to Mr. Ecclestone based upon not making a profit and possibly making a loss. We offered for 05, 06 and 07. It appears that that offer is not commercially acceptable to Mr. Ecclestone, and that as far as this aspect of the Grand Prix is concerned, that the government are not prepared to help us.
Formula One commercial supremo Bernie Ecclestone has called the British race a country fair masquerading as a world event.
I think it's terrible, not just for Silverstone, for the whole of motor racing in the world, in England particularly, but I'm not sure it's over yet.
President of the British Racing Drivers Club is 3 times world champion Sir Jackie Stewart. The BRDC runs Silverstone's major races.
We've got to find a way to keep it because there's a lot of jobs in this country. About 40 or 50,000 jobs in this country depend on the motorsports industry. The livelihood of this community is going to be affected, and on a sporting side. We've got a great balance of young British drivers coming along that have all been infected by the bug of seeing the British Grand Prix live. You don't get passion like that watching it on television. You've got to come here. I did in the 50s, and that's why I became a racing driver. The same could be said for Damon Hill or Nigel Mansell, for Johnny Herbert, Jenson Button or David Coulthard. And if you think back, even Jim Clark and Graham Hill and myself were infected by that bug.
The non-profit BRDC made an offer to Ecclestone's Formula One management to promote the race despite the likelihood that they would lose money. Ecclestone wants a 1-year contract, while the BRDC preferred 2 years to carry out improvements.
We need 17, maximum of 17 races in the series, in the World Championship. And I said to them, we're happy to talk and do anything we can, but it's going to have to finish because today actually, because I have to put all the confirm we have contracts for 17 races to the FIA. And
which is the ruling body of the sport.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, they haven't signed a contract. So it's just that simple.
It's hoped Silverstone will host the British Grand Prix on July the 3rd, which would clash with the finals of the tennis at Wimbledon.
And are you optimistic that there will be a Grand Prix here at Silverstone next year?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm very careful to say that. I think what government are attempting to do with us, and they've been very good in their communication systems with us to try and help, I think with that, and if Bernie Ecclestone's prepared to just give a little bit on it, we can meet a situation where we're not going to make money. We might break even and we still will probably lose a small amount of money. And I think it's absolutely scandalous that it's left to a private members club to try and retain Britain's largest sporting event on economic terms. It's simply not fair, but you know, sometimes business isn't fair, but we would like to think we can get the job done.
The teams really don't want 18 races, to be honest with you, but they're British-based teams, so you never know. We're going to try.
China and Bahrain made their debuts this year, and Turkey should be included for the first time next year. In the penultimate race this year, the Schumacher brothers started and finished first and second, while Button took yet another podium to cement his place in the championship. BAR lived up to their threat to run second to Ferrari and ahead of Renault, grabbing more points for third and fourth places in their 100th race. The DTM series reached its conclusion at the Hockenheim Ring in Germany, staging the 10th and final round of the season. Matthias Ekström had clinched the title at the previous race in the Czech Republic, but second place in the final DTM standings was still up for grabs. Martin Tomczyk made a perfect start to the race from pole position, leading into the first corner and ahead of deposed champion Bernd Schneider. Back down the field, Marcel Fassler spun, and the Swiss's Opel Vectra suffered further punishment on lap 5 when it was driven into the back of Peter Dumbreck during a dangerous overtaking manoeuvre. Schneider passed Tomczyk for second place on lap 13, the German forcing his way through and stubbornly holding his lead on the way out of the corner. The Mercedes driver took the lead 2 laps later when a surging Ekstrom finally went into the pits. Schneider made his second stop of the race on lap 17, closely followed by Gary Paffett, for whom the runners-up spot in the season standings was still at stake. Manuel Reuter's afternoon came to a premature end on lap 19 when he slid off the track and lost his left front wheel in the gravel. The German returned to the pits, but his Opel Vectra was beyond repair and Reuter was forced to retire. Ekstrom made his second pit stop late and he passed Christian Albers on lap 28 to move into 6th place, to the delight of his Audi team. Schneider took the checkered flag, Tomczyk was second ahead of Paffett in 3rd, but there was still some time for more drama. Ekstrom made an aggressive move against Jean Alesi going into the final corner, but this allowed Tom Christensen to move up to 4th, and ex-Formula 1 star Alesi passed on the inside to leave Ekstrom back in 6th. However, Ekstrom wouldn't have been too disappointed as he soon took to the podium and lifted the DTM Championship trophy beside Schneider, Tomczyk and Paffett, whose 6 championship points were more than enough to seal the DTM runners-up spot. Four-times world rally champion Juha Kankkunen signed up with Volkswagen earlier this month. The Finn, who will be joined by regular co-driver Juha Repo, will line up alongside Jutta Kleinschmidt and Bruno Sabi in an expanded 3-car squad, which now boasts a trio of former Paris-Dakar winners. Kleinschmidt took an historic win in 2001, while Sabi and Kankkunen triumphed in 1993 and 1998 respectively. Kankkunen will make his first appearance in a Touareg at the UAE Desert Challenge in Dubai.
I did one test in Turkey about a little bit more than a month ago, and Chris said that come, try the car, how do you feel, if you like it or not, and then just decide if you want to do the rally. And then I tried the car and I was surprised how good the car was, and then here we are. So we made the deal to do Dubai and then Dakar.
Under the direction of Volkswagen Motorsport director Chris Nissen, the works team tested new developments in Poland. The suspension setup, on which Kleinschmidt and Kankkunen concentrated, was on the program, as well as a modified transmission.
It's the same like every normal cars. If you take car from '88 and you take nowadays car, it's a big difference there. It's quite light. It's heavy car, but it's very light to drive, handles well, suspension. It's very good over the bumps and things, and of course the regulations have changed. At the time we had Group B cars, which were very more powerful and things, but okay, everybody else is the same regulations for everybody, and if you compare to the other cars, it seems to be really a winning car.
Kankkunen brings enormous experience to the project, having first been world champion in 1986, becoming the first driver to successfully defend his title the next year, and later becoming the first 4-time champion, a feat only recently equalled by Tommi Mäkinen.
Every rally will be a good test for Dakar, and we will be still testing in the different places. But for sure, Dubai is a good race. We see how strong the car, how competitive it is, and how everything works.
Following the session in Poland, another test will follow after a period of development at the team's base at Hanover in Germany. French motorcycle rider Richard Sanct has been killed in a crash in the Faroes Rally in Egypt. The 34-year-old crashed twice in the 4th stage, and the second accident was fatal. He was taken to hospital by helicopter but was dead on arrival. Sanct, who became French endurance champion in 1989, won the Faroes Rally in 2002, the Atlas Rally in 97 and 98, the Tunisia Rally in 98 and 99, and the Paris-Dakar Rally in 99, 2000 and 2003. Jason Crump needed just 7 points to clinch the Speedway World Championship at the final round of the season in Norway. The Australian's 2003 world title campaign was brought to a disappointing end here 12 months ago. He was excluded and Nicky Pedersen claimed the crown. This year, Crump held a 17-point lead over his nearest rival, 5 times world champion Tony Rickardsson, going into the evening. That meant that a first or second place finish in Heat 19 would be enough to seal the title. But the crucial race would be restarted after Pedersen's boot got caught on Crump's bike on the way into the first turn, and they crashed out, taking Australian Ryan Sullivan with them. The replay shows that there was no fault on Crump's behalf. Crowd favourite Rune Holter was disqualified for an infringement at the restart before Sullivan crashed out at the second restart and was also excluded. With only 2 riders remaining in the heat, Crump automatically became world champion, almost by default. He would finish the Grand Prix in 7th place, but with an unbeatable points lead. The exclusions guaranteed Crump the points he needed, and a much sought-after world title was finally his. Crump would eventually finish second behind Pedersen in that heat, but not before he suffered an embarrassing fall during his celebrations.
Like I said before, I've worked my life to try and become world champion and to try and be the best speedway rider I can be. And you know, I've been close the last few years, granted, but there's nothing like having world champion next to your name. And I just, you know, in the next couple of days, it's really going to hit home, I guess.
Crump finished last in Heat 24, the second semi-final, and failed to reach the final. Rickardsson stormed to victory in his absence, the Swede making up for the disappointment of finishing 3 points shy of Crump in the final season standings. American Greg Hancock sealed 3rd place in the season standings by finishing Heat 25 in 2nd place, ahead of Poland's Tomasz Golop and Australian Lee Adams, his main rival for 3rd overall. Rickardsson celebrated his 2nd win of the season, but the night belonged to Crump, a deserving champion after 3 seasons as a runner-up. Commenting on the new 16-rider format for the 2005 series, Hancock said he was looking forward to the new system. He hoped it would give everyone a fair shot at being able to get different gates, and it would be less strenuous on the riders, as they wouldn't have to contend with the knockout system early on. With only 16 riders in next year's FIM Speedway Grand Prix Series, just 8 riders from the 2004 series automatically qualify for next year. The 8 riders are Crump, Rickardsson, Hancock, Lee Adams, Nicky Pedersen, Golop, Andrus Johansson from Sweden, and Jaroslav Hampel from Poland.
2nd place, Tony Rickardsson, and 3rd place, Greg Hancock.
Denmark's Hans Andersen just missed out by 1 point, finishing 9th, and fellow countryman Bjarne Pedersen was 10th. It was the same for the Brits, with Lee Richardson and Scott Nichols finishing 11th and 12th. All will be hoping that they can gain entry to the 2005 series via a permanent wildcard place. The magnificent brand new La Salle track on the desert on the outskirts of Doha is yet another symbol of the oil and gas-rich Emirates' rising sporting ambitions. The $58 million motorcycle facility, a sport without any major roots in the country, is in tune with the investment of billions of dollars in various sports facilities. The 5.4-kilometre circuit was built in a staggering 12 months and only completed 3 months ago. Ahead of the race, riders got to know the new track any way they could. Sete Gibernau, challenging Valentino Rossi for the championship this year, toured the circuit on a moped, as did 250 star Dani Pedrosa, showing the injuries sustained when he fell through a glass wall at a squash court. Rossi used an air-conditioned car, but agreed that the circuit was impressive.
Yes, we go with the car on the track, and the first impression is good. The layout of the track is good. I think is medium fast, all with a good rhythm. Not hard braking, not hard acceleration. Is a good track. Now we need to understand the condition of the surface.
The event makes Qatar the 27th country to host the World Championship since it began at the Isle of Man in 1949. Superbike rider Yuki Kageyama was drafted into the Suzuki team. He replaces Kenny Roberts, injured in a first corner crash at the Japanese round, who's likely to be out for the rest of the season. Roberts' brother Curtis also missed out through injury and is replaced at their father's Proton team by James Hayden.
There we were.
However, controversy reigned in the sweltering sun before the field had left the starting grid. Rossi, the reigning world champion and points leader, was shunted to the back of the grid after his Yamaha team were found guilty of laying down rubber on his grid position with a scooter to try and help his start. Being the world-class rider that he is, the 25-year-old Italian stormed through the field and reached 4th place after only 4 of the 22 laps. On the way, he got closer than he intended to Brazilian rival Alex Barros, but acknowledged his mistake and apologised to the Honda rider. Up ahead, Shinya Nakano, fresh from a first-ever podium for the Kawasaki team at home in Japan, blew his chances and his engine as his crew helplessly watched the trackside monitors. Then Rossi made a mistake coming out of a corner. His reaction said it all, as he knew that he had given Spaniard Sete Gibernau a lifeline. Gibernau needed maximum points on his Honda to keep his world title dreams alive. Gibernau then overtook compatriot and pole sitter Carlos Checa before taking victory on his Honda, with teammate Colin Edwards of the USA just 1.3 seconds behind him. Ruben Zaus was third on his Ducati, 23.8 seconds adrift. This was privateer Zaus's first MotoGP podium and the best showing for the Italian factory all year after a fairy tale debut season last year. There were few close battles towards the end as riders conserved their engines and tyres in the heat. The win reverses some bad luck for Gibernau and revitalises his hopes of a first MotoGP title.
Difficult weekend for us. The team did an unbelievable job. With Michelin, we were able to go back to the feeling that I'm used to, and that made me enjoy the bike and riding the bike again, and that was the whole deal. Like I say, I can only say thanks to my team, to Honda.
With 3 rounds remaining, a win for Gibernau and a rare mistake from Rossi, the title is still very much alive for both Sete and Valentino. In the 250s, Argentine Sebastian Porto edged out the championship favourite Daniel Pedrosa of Spain to win the class. Alex De Angelis of San Marino was an early retirement, much to the dismay of his pit crew. Porto on his Aprilia moved up to second in the world title race as he finished 1.6 seconds ahead of Pedrosa's Honda after starting on pole. Hiroshi Ioma of Japan was third, also on a Honda. Pedrosa now has 254 points in the World Championship to Porto's 211 in his first season in the class after taking the 125cc title last year. He broke both ankles in a crash 12 months ago at the Australian Grand Prix, just after securing that world title. In the 125s, Spanish teenager Jorge Lorenzo beat championship leader Italian Andrea Dovizioso in an extraordinary photo finish. Dovizioso on a Honda waited until the final lap to attack and came out of the 17-year-old Lorenzo's slipstream on the final straight as the pair flashed over the line together. Eventually, Lorenzo, who had started from pole, was given the win. Hector Barbera failed to score, and not only is it unlikely he could take the title, but his second place could become 4th with another bad result. So, whether you're starting a new series, crashing into a championship, or trying out a new racer, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.